Hey Dave,
What's up, Adam?
how you doing? Other than last
I mean,
night,
it's fresh. It's fresh right now.
yeah, for sure. Hey, Kadarius gave you a little bit of a spark in the return game last night. Any thought of sticking with him going forward? And Brad, I'll have a second question as well.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten a report yet from our trainers. It's so early. So we have to see, how McCole is. We have to see how, Kadarius he runs so hard and tough that he kept getting banged up in there too. Like his hand got hurt and his foot, it's a whole different thing. So we just have to wait and see. We'll get the doctor's report. We'll move forward from there. But yeah, I mean, he gave us a little bit of a spark. He runs hard. He's a good catcher. He's fearless back there. So we'll see. We'll just have to evaluate as we go forward.
And what about Richie James? Assuming he's going to be active at some point, where does he figure into all this?
Richie, he would have to be. We would like him to be the punt returner. If he's going to be active, if he's going to help us at all on special teams, that's where he would have to help us.
Let's go next to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Coach, a couple of questions, but with the weather and the field conditions last night, how did that you feel really play into the kicking game? I know Tommy had a couple of kicks that looked like they maybe didn't go where he wanted them to, but how did that just all play in with the wind, the weather, and everything?
Well, the weather affected our distance on our field goals a little bit. Obviously, when we didn't try that longer field goal down there at the end of the game. I mean, it was out of our range, what we felt comfortable with. And then the way our defense was playing, we felt, like field position was probably the best way to go there. We just didn't get the ball downed like we needed to in that situation. We had the touchback. So that's part of the execution that we have to do a better job with. But as far as the field goes, the field held up pretty darn good, I thought. I didn't see a lot of slipping out there, and it's a good field. It drains real well. Really, that wasn't a factor. I didn't think, but it was mainly the rainy, windy conditions. More so than the field.
And you kind of touched on my second question there, which I think that there would have been like a 57-yard field goal there where you choose to punt instead from the 39. How close of a
Well,
decision?
it was really, if you look at it, it was really the 40. I mean, it was more 39 and a half. Right. And then when James was getting ready to snap it, it was barely on the, just about the 40. So it's a long field goal there, but it was out of our range. And what we decided to go with, in pregame.
Let's go next to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Coach. Matt touched upon it, but Tommy looked a little frustrated with some of his punts last night. Just one bad game, or did you see something potentially more there as you reviewed?
I didn't see anything potentially more. I just thought that he got a little frustrated. You're right. We had 6 punts. 3 of them weren't up to par. For him, he'll play better next week.
Let's go next to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Dave, I know you acknowledge that if Richie does come back to the active roster, he's going to be, primarily used as a potential punt returner.
Well, for me, offense, they could use him a lot of different ways. Obviously he's a wide receiver, but, if he's going to help me, I would use him as a punt returner. He doesn't, he's not really a cover guy or gunner or anything like that. So
right.
That's what I was meaning by that.
Yeah. Thank you. And because you guys have seen just so few kickoff return possibilities, would Sky Moore still be your preferred option there, or would McCole sort of return back to that?
Well, McCole, I never got word back from the trainers that McCole was healthy. Even though he played offense, they didn't clear him to play returner. And it's a little different with his hand because he had a hand injury. So, that's really why we stuck with Sky. Sky's number 2. He's the second kick returner. That's why he was in there. And, he does a good job in practice and he's our next man up there.
Go next to Todd Lebo. Go ahead, Todd.
Coach, I know it's a little bit early to ask you about your opponent, but I wonder if you just give a little scouting report about the Raiders. And you guys have been out there enough at that stadium. Any weird things about it or anything you guys have to watch for out there, how it compares to other domes or the field surface or anything?
No, I love that stadium. It's awesome. The crowd, it's just it's a cool place to play. But besides that, the Raiders they're a good football team. The right now, we do statistics all year long, and we keep track. They're ranked number 1 on special teams, so they definitely have our attention. I mean, obviously, I started looking at them a little bit last week, but not really in depth, but really dove into it this morning early. And they're a really good unit. They fly around. They got a great returner. Carter is excellent. The punter is having a year that is just crazy good. Cole, he's doing it really, really well. So it's going to be a tough one on a short week.
Coach, we appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks. Take care, guys.
Hey, Coach, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I don't see any.
Brad just doesn't have his camera on.
Brad, you don't have your camera on? I can't
There we
see your
go.
love. There you go. Now I can see somebody. That's good. Yeah.
We are ready
Yeah,
to
I'm
start
ready to
whenever
go.
you are, Coach.
Okay, I'm good. I tell you, it's funny. This is a quick one, and it's Tuesday. We're only not even 24 hours removed, but we are certainly on to the Raiders right now. Disappointed in not winning the game yesterday, but all about the Raiders now. So with that, I'll open it up.
Go first to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Steve. Trent
Yeah.
McDuffie had quite the game last night. I know you guys liked him when you drafted him, obviously, but are you getting maybe more in him than maybe you anticipated when you drafted him?
I don't know. I mean, listen, we had high expectations when we took him, obviously. I think if I'm not mistaken, remember better than me, Adam, but I think didn't we move up to get Trent in that draft, right? Yeah. And I think we were all convicted on what we were getting. What I didn't realize, because at Washington, he did not play a lot inside as a nickel, but I did talk with Jimmy Lake prior to the draft. That was his college coach. And I remember him saying to me, hey, Steve, I know Trent didn't play a lot inside. Because they had another guy that was drafted that played some nickel. I forget his name. But Jimmy Lake said to me, Coach Lake said that he could certainly play inside there. So we always kind of had that in the back of our mind. Now, a year ago, LJ was in there more often. But because we've matched LJ quite a bit with a number one receiver, we needed somebody else to go inside, and Trent's been that guy. And listen, he has excelled in there. I mean, you're talking about a guy that plays inside, he plays outside. We blitz him. We ask him to do a lot of things. And so the first part of that is the mental. And I'm real impressed with that part of that and with what he's done. And was happy to see him get a couple of sacks last night, made a good play on a ball that they tried to throw out there. He's just got some really good instincts, and that bodes well when you're playing inside like that.
The pass rush part of it, was that maybe more than what you anticipated with him?
Probably, because you never really saw it, right? But I think a lot of these guys in the secondary that have been able to when we do bring them and create pressures, I think a lot of them have watched LJ do it in the past. And I think I know they ask LJ questions. LJ's got a real good feel for, you've seen it before in the past when he comes off the edge and he's got a burst. And Trent has a lot of those same qualities, just a natural knee bender. And he can make that corner. When he got that ball out, it would have been nice to come up with it. But he's got some real good instincts, and it helps in pass rush.
Let's go next to Todd Palmer. Go ahead, Todd.
Hey, Coach. Speaking of LJ, I just, once again, you guys put him on an elite wide receiver in AJ Brown, and he rose to the occasion, and he's done well against Tyreek and Justin Jefferson. Safe to say he's going to draw the assignment against Devontae Adams, and what allows him to have success against these elite guys?
Yeah, well, listen, we'll find ways to get him on Devontae. It won't be all the time, because sometimes when LJ and Trent are in there, we're okay with them going right and left. So it's not every down. I think one of the biggest thing is LJ is a physical guy. I mean, people keep talking to me about the penalties he's getting. I'm not always concerned about it. He's always working at it. He got one yesterday that he'd like to have back. Sometimes that happens when you're an aggressive press team, but I would never give that up for what he's been giving us in terms of trying to be aggressive on a top receiver. I just think that's always good for us, and I think he does a nice job with it. The other guys do the same thing. I mean, Trent's been on those guys before, and so hasn't Josh and Jalen. So we'll keep hoping we have some success with it.
Go next to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I have a follow-up on LJ. I just, in your experience here and in the NFL, just how rare is it to have so much success against guys like Jefferson and Hill and Brown? And then really, like, in the prism of, it's a lot tougher to play defense nowadays than maybe it used to be.
Yeah. In terms of the rules and whatnot they talk about. Yeah, that's a really good point, Pete. And yet LJ has found a way to be really effective. I mean, the other thing that happens, and you guys have a keen eye for this stuff, so you see it, but a lot of times LJ will be over there doing his job. It goes unnoticed because the ball doesn't get thrown over there, right? But yet he's taking a guy out that's a prime target. And I've been fortunate in the past to have some guys, Corey Webster, when I was in New York way back, we that playoff run we went on, he ended up on TO, and I think Randy Moss, the whole thing. And then way back in Philadelphia, we used to do it a little bit with Troy Vincent. So when you have a guy like that, you certainly want to try to move him around. But again, I go back to Trent. Trent's kind of allowed us to do that with LJ because Trent's able to go inside. So keep those guys healthy, keep them playing at a high level, and hopefully that'll help us out going forward.
Let's go next to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Coach. Talking to Chris Jones last night, he mentioned just the 3rd and 5 touchdown run by Hurts on the quarterback draw. He felt like you guys were ready for that. What did you kind of see on that play, and just as far as, especially just the way Philadelphia executed it?
Yeah, we had something called that we really thought was going to take that away. We didn't quite execute it the way we had practiced it. It was a different play that they ran than we had practiced, but we felt like we would have had to defend it if we had just done a movement just a little bit different. So that we'd like to have that one back, I think, in the execution of it, because I think we could have denied that. We had planned for them to run those quarterback draws in the red zone there. And now, truth be known, let's say we had stuffed it for a yard or two, they probably would have went for our 4th down, so we would have been dealing with a 4th down play. But give them credit, tip my hat off to that quarterback. He made some plays with his feet, and we just needed to make 1 or 2 more plays, I think, that to get us what I would have tagged a nice defensive win, at least from our standpoint, if we could have kept them under 17 points. But that didn't happen, so we just had to find a way to do it in this next game.
We got 2 more. We'll go first to Karen Kornacki. Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, Coach.
Hi, Karen.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I could just see a hand waving, like one of those emojis.
No, I just wanted to know, how different are the Raiders after a coaching change?
Well, listen, that's probably well documented that Antonio Pierce is a favorite of mine. I was fortunate enough to coach him in New York. I think he's doing a terrific job. I mean, I was just talking with somebody here recently. The energy in that team seems to have changed. I mean, I know what he's all about. I know how he coaches. I kind of know what he thinks, and he'll energize the team. He's done it. He's done it both with them offensively and defensively. I think they're playing at a high level. I mean, look at they played Miami 2 days ago, and we know they're a real good football team. And they gave them all they could handle. So I think he's made a tremendous impact. When I spoke with him last week, I told him I was always pulling for him, except for 2 games, and this will be one of them. So he doesn't have me on his side for this particular game.
We'll last to Todd Lebo. Go ahead, Todd.
Coach, I want to ask you something about Antonio, then it's something else after that.
Sure.
When did you see something in him that you thought this is someone who could be a head coach?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. It goes all the way back to when I coached him. He was in my opinion, he was another coach on the field. He was our Mike linebacker, a lot like Nick. Sees the game, big picture, sees little things that other guys, it goes unnoticed. They study the game differently. He always did. He was a grinder of tape. And then when he got done playing, and we spoke, I thought he wasn't sure if he wanted to do it. I said, well, go coach high school football for a little while. And, he did that. You guys know he was a head coach out there at Long Beach for 5 years and did a terrific job. And then I had him for 1 year in New York in 2017. He was kind of behind the scenes, but he was always great at grinding tape. And he has a unique way of he can communicate with anybody. He could be in a black tie affair and do great, or he could be on the streets somewhere. He just has a great way of great in relationships with people in all places, and he can connect people together. He's doing that now out there with the Raiders.
And one thing about last night, I remember when we talked last week, it was trying to keep Philly out of those 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1s where they could run. And you guys did a really nice job of doing that in the first half. Just wonder how much of a game changer that was for you when they got in those situations to not be able to stop that play.
Yeah. Well, we knew it was going to be, listen, their rate of success has been high on that. And we knew if we ended up in that, it'd be tough. And it was. I think they might have ended up in 3 of them. I know one was on the 1-yard line. And we didn't want to be on the 1-yard line. We needed to make a better play or a better defensive call in that particular situation. But I give them credit. I mean, they were resilient. I mean, we had played some really good downs of defensive football early, and yet they kept grinding away. And when you get in that position, you need to step your game up as a unit and hopefully slam the door a little bit. And we didn't do that. They made a play, and it ended up the way that it did. But we'll move on to the next one, and I know our guys will rally around that.
Coach, thanks. We appreciate the time. Thanks
okay, all good. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. I'm ready.
Perfect. We'll kick it off with Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Matt. You sort of knew this was going to be a season of development for a lot of your wide receivers, just given the youth. But it seems like maybe that process is going a little slower than everybody hoped. Is there reasons for that? Maybe why this group hasn't developed quite as quickly as everybody wanted? And Brad, I'll have a second question as well.
Sure. You know what, Adam, I think that, as we go through this process and we go through this year of building this offense and like we've been talking about all year, what guys do well and what their strengths and weaknesses are. We want to be able to, number one, score points, eliminate turnovers, eliminate penalties, as an offense in general. And then, when the plays are there to be made, make the plays. And that's everybody. And the same thing with us as coaches, when we have a chance to make good calls and practice and put these guys in good positions, we want to be able to do that. And I think, we've been dealing with a good amount of guys here that are all great players that want to do well and succeed. And when you have a game like we had last night, where there might be a little bit of a magnifying glass on whether it's some of the drops or whether it's a specific play that can be a little bit bigger than others, it can definitely, be a big deal. And we understand that, and the players understand that. But in the end, we have a lot of trust in these guys and we believe in them. And I think that's very, very important. And you hear that and you see that from Pat. And it's something that we just continue to stick together and keep working through. And we know it's not going to be easy. But honestly, the biggest thing, Adam, is it goes back to, again, like, let's not beat ourselves with turnovers and penalties in the end, and drops. I know that can be a part of it as well, but there's a lot that goes into all of that. So that's a long way to say that, yes, we know we need to be better. When you lose a game, it gets magnified. When you win a game, sometimes it gets deodorized. And I think we need to understand that, hey, we have good things ahead of us, and let's just stay positive and work through these, and we'll be all right.
Okay. And I got an MVS question, not just because of the drop last night, just sort of a general lack of production from this season. I remember when he came in, Andy really thought you guys maybe could expand his game, maybe go beyond what he did in Green Bay, and that really hasn't happened. Just why hasn't it worked out for him? What's going on with him?
Well, there's things that go into that, and I think it's probably everybody's definition. I know we all look at the numbers and that sort of thing, but there is a lot at the same point in time, Adam. There's a lot that he does well that sometimes doesn't show up on the stat sheet. And, for instance, you look at the touchdown catch that Travis had that everybody's going to read about, and the touchdown pass from Pat and the catch by Kelsey. But a lot of reasons why that play worked was because of what MVS did. And sometimes that doesn't show up in the stat book. And there's other things that he does and these players do that don't show up, that we have to make sure that they get credit for behind the scenes. And so he does a lot of that, and I think that's a credit to him, and that can be very selfless at times, which we love. And then production-wise and number-wise, yeah, he's not where he was last year, and we do know that we have hopefully a bunch of season left, and we want to be able to continue to keep working through these things as we have these different wide receivers. And I know similar to last year, but he's had a great attitude this whole time, and we just got to keep staying positive.
Let's go next to Sam McDowell. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Matt. I had a couple things too, Brad. But I wondered if you could you had 3 times where you had receivers behind the defense last night, and obviously the way teams have been playing you this season, that's a bit unusual. I know the last one MVS dropped, but I wonder if you could take through the first 2, one to Justin Watson, where it seemed like he was maybe running a post and Patrick threw more of a go ball, and then also the one to MVS midway through the third quarter, just what you saw in those 2 plays.
Yeah, well, the one to J Watt, I think it was just a little bit of a landmark deal where they're just working through different releases that you can get versus the DB, and then obviously the throw, and they were just off on that. And it's just sometimes that happens again when you miss those, when you're not getting the opportunities or the shots that we're having. Those, again, when you miss those, get a little bit magnified. So we understand that. We got to connect on those when we get a chance to hit those. And J Watt, got by them, and Pat saw that, and just making sure we work on our landmarks and where we want to be. That was that one. And then the one you're talking about with Quez, are you talking about the one at the end?
No, I'm talking about the one midway through the third quarter where he's down on, I guess it's the east sideline. It looks like he's more bending on a route, a corner route towards the sideline. About the
oh yeah. Again, there's different angles as you run these routes, and you got to give credit to the Eagles on how they play certain routes, and it's never going to be perfect. And I think probably when you're not getting these shots that we haven't had over the years, when you do get an opportunity to take them and get them, you want to be able to connect on them. And we just didn't. And I think that's probably the easiest answer. So we just have to make sure we stick together and keep working those type of routes. And we hit one to J Watt there when they went cover zero by our sideline on a similar type throw. And we connected on that one. So, we're so used to seeing a lot of those connections. And I think right now these guys, the care is there, and we just got to make sure we keep working it and keep working the timing and the element of everything that goes into it.
And the last one I had was about Rashid. I mean, I know earlier in the season, I think it was the preseason where Brett said he was more of a package player to open the season as you guys were trying to get him educated on the full offense. Is he still that, or is his playing time still affected by, putting him in the strengths of what he knows right now?
Not necessarily. I think he's done a good job of being able to show us that he can do more. And taking the time throughout the week to understand certain route concepts. We know what he can do with the football in his hand. We saw that yesterday a few times, and he's a physical runner and he has strong hands. Now I think you're noticing that some of his snaps are going up slightly as far as his percentages of snaps. And we want to continue to do that. That's the part of development in the trust factor, which is real. And the more we can get of that, I think the better we will be, because he's a very good football player. And so I think you're right. He is growing, but it'll be in increments, and we like the path he's on right now.
Let's go next to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, kind of a follow-up to Sam on the wide receiver playtime percentages. Watson led last night, and Moore's been kind of up and down. Marquez was a little bit lower than usual. It's just game by game, it seems to be very different. Is that game plan specific, or do you feel like you guys at this stage are still kind of evaluating like who the top receivers in this thing can be, or is it like kind of a mixture of both? I just was curious about that.
Yeah, it's probably a mixture of both, Pete. It's one where maybe one game, based off of what we think personnel wise we want to do or not do. And that can be whether we're in 13 personnel, 12 personnel, 11 personnel, whether we decide we want to throw the ball or run the ball. All of that kind of goes into it. We take a strong look at that every week, where we're putting guys. And it would be, it's certainly a little easier to do when you have less guys, because it's those 3 or 4 guys. We have a few more guys that are a part of our wide receiver room. And so there's a little balance in the juggling act on top of it. Hey, if somebody gets hurt, or if we, for whatever, someone just ran a deep route and now it's 3rd and 10 and they were in for this next route, but they ran 2 deep routes in a row, the next guy's up. So it's impossible to be perfect with all of that, but I think you'll probably see throughout the season, there's probably a little bit of a fluctuation in all the guys.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go Jesse and then Karen. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hey, Matt. Both tackles, Juwan and Donovan, struggled at times last night. I just wondered if you can speak individually about both of them, just big picture. What do you see from them now individually, and where do you hope they improve from here on out?
Right. Well, it's really, I always start off with, okay, coming in here to a new system, coming in here to learn to play on the offensive line with a couple new guys there on the inside. They've done a great job of kind of understanding how we do things schematically. And now it's just fitting who they are, each guy individually, into the scheme, and then us using their strengths. And unfortunately, there's a couple penalties that we've had in the last several games, and really this year. We talked about it over the bye week that that's something that whether it's holding penalties or false starts, it's the timing of it. And it's unfortunate that we've had some of these happened in the second half. It stalled some drives. And again, I think, we're all grown adults. And I think when these guys understand that, hey, how do you handle something like that? Well, yelling and screaming, and these guys know that it's a concern for us. They understand that. And we're talking about that, and they get it. We just have to really lock in and continue to focus on that and reduce them so that we don't get into a 3rd and long situation. It's hard to convert 3rd downs. And when you go from 3rd and 7 to 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 2 to 3rd and 7, it makes it more difficult. It stalls drives. So we have to really focus in on that and lock in on that. And they know that, but we got to do it.
Well, last Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
2 questions. The drop passes, you guys are among the leaders in the league. What do you, when you guys say you're working on stuff, is it just, doing more work on pass and catch? Is it after work with Patrick? Is it using a machine? I mean, when you say work, how are you trying to get these guys so it's second nature?
Yeah, it's more physical than anything. So these guys, there might be times when we're in the building, just getting through a meeting after a walkthrough, and you look outside and you see guys on the jugs machines getting extra work in. So that's probably the biggest one. And then it would be in between periods, they go over with the quarterbacks and they run specific routes that are in the game plan. So, generally speaking, we have several routes that a lot of guys have been doing, since OTAs, but then we may have a couple routes that are a little bit more specific to that defense. And so we try to work on the timing of those routes with the time permitted in between periods, and they stay afterwards as well. So I would say definitely it's more physical. The mental side of it is understanding and just looking at the scheme of where you're going to be at, but physically getting those throws from Patrick is where they get that extra work in between periods. And then those guys on their own, you'll see they're outside more so on the jugs when Patrick's not out there.
And the Raiders, I think of Max Crosby when I think of their defense. And of course, he loves to harass Patrick. He's known for getting in his face, and the two have lots of conversations on the field, so to speak. What do you see as the Raiders overall as a defense? And is he the guy that, gets that fire going for them?
Without a doubt. I mean, this guy, as a defensive player, is one of the better ones that have played in a long time. I mean, he's relentless. He's just ruthless. I mean, he is all over the place all the time. You have to know where he's at, and you have to respect that when you have a good football player like that. And when you're on the defensive line and you're as agile, long, lengthy, you have a high motor, you're smart, you're tough, like all that stuff that goes into play is a reason why, he'll be in the mention of one of the best defensive players in this game this year and for years to come. So a lot of respect for him. And I think too, to your question, is it's a mutual respect. As much as some of the trash talking that goes on in the physicality between Patrick and Max, there's a mutual respect for each other. And when you have two really good football players that are competing at the highest level on every single play, I mean, this guy doesn't come off the field. He's on the field every play, and he's going 120 miles an hour on every play. You got to know where he's at. And we have to do our best job of making sure that we don't allow him to make a game-changing play. He's going to make plays. That's what he does. But we have to make sure we don't let him make a game-changing play.
Coach Nagy, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Y'all take care.
You too.